Hey folks, if you like audiobooks, then you need to check out today's sponsor, Audible.com. They have over 180,000 titles from the leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, entertainers, magazine and newspaper publishers, and business information providers. With Audible.com, you can catch up on all the hot new books you've been meaning to read on your daily commute. You can find everything on Audible, including my books, Attempting Normal and The Jerusalem Syndrome, read by me. For WTF listeners, Audible.com is offering a free 30-day trial membership. Go to audible.com/WTF today to start your free trial. Today's episode is also brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the easiest way to create a beautiful website, blog, or online store for you and your ideas. Squarespace features an elegant interface, beautiful templates, and incredible 24/7 customer support. Start building your website today at squarespace.com. Enter offer code WTF at checkout to get 10% off. All right, let's do the show.
Lock the gate!
All right, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers, what the fuck buddies, what the fucking ears? Welcome to the show. I am Marc Maron. This is WTF, my podcast. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. I am excited about today's show, as you should be as well. It's a pretty special show, my friends. A pretty special show because you will listen to a conversation I had with Sasha Baron Cohen, who does not do many public conversations, not out of character, and usually those are short, but we talked for a long time. Seemed like he was ready to talk about some stuff, and it was pretty fascinating, man. It was pretty fascinating. I really didn't know what was going to happen. I'm glad I had the opportunity to do it. Apparently, he was sort of defied or requested to do it by a friend of his in England, because he goes out and when he has a movie coming out, which he does, he goes out and does some stuff, but he usually does it as in character of some sort, or he's got a shtick, and not this time, people. That's I guess that's what I'm trying to tell you. Not this time. The comedian and writer Peter Bainham, a British fellow who's a friend of Sasha's, told him that he had to do the show, and he came over a couple of weeks ago, and we sat in here, and I gave him some coffee, and he got lit, and we went at it. It was really great. It was one of those things where when somebody creates, I think that Sasha has created a couple of real cultural masterpieces and real comedy masterpieces with Borat and Bruno and the Ali G stuff, and he has done stuff that has such a punch to it and is so visceral and so immediate, also character driven, but revealing a lot satirically about the world and people and our culture, and he just, those are amazing contributions to the world of comedy and to satire. He's got a new movie coming out. It comes out March 11th, called The Brothers Grimsby, which is a narrative film, a pretty exciting and goofy hybrid of kind of an action movie and a doofus movie with some of the most crass filmic joke experiences that I think you'll ever see. That's where he's pushing the buttons in this one. But the bottom line is, I didn't know what to expect, and we had a very full-ranging conversation about comedy, about art, about education, about, a little bit about religion, about the power of comedy and why we do it. And I don't know, man. It was exciting for me because I don't know about you. I've always wanted to know what was inside that guy and what drove him, and I got as close as you're going to get to getting some answers. So that's coming up in a few minutes. Let's take a minute for our friends at Stamps.com. If you already use Stamps.com because you heard me talk about it on this show, congratulations to you. You've saved yourself time, money, and all the headaches of going to the post office. If you don't use Stamps.com but just thought, hey, I must be a stupid moron for wasting all that time, money, and energy at the post office. Well, now's your chance to turn things around. Stamps.com turns your computer into your own personal post office that never closes. Buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter or package using your computer and printer, then just hand your stuff to the mail carrier or drop it in a mailbox. That's all you have to do. It's just $15.99 a month with no long-term contract or markups on postage. You don't have to lease a postage meter, and you even get discounts on postage. So how easy is it? Right now, sign up for Stamps.com and use my promo code WTF for this special offer. Get a 4-week trial plus a $110 bonus offer, including postage and a digital scale. Don't wait. Go to Stamps.com, and before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in WTF. That's Stamps.com. Enter WTF. So Sasha Baron Cohen. It's, his commitment to characters is astounding. And, as I talk to him about, how he puts those characters together, why he puts those characters together. I mean, what I found out about him, and you'll find out, too, as you listen to it, is that he loves the rush. He's a real comic. He didn't, he's a natural, but you'll be surprised to listen to how he trained and what he really wanted to do and what is the real intent of his movies and his characters. And it's not unlike a comedian or somebody who does things that are provocative. Somebody who takes the risk of putting themselves out there in front of other people or in situations for that adrenaline, that juice. Yeah, man. I mean, I think about that a lot. I've been thinking about that a lot lately in relation to my life and how long do we have to live and what's really happening and what choices am I making? What do I need to do? What do I don't need to do at this point, at this juncture in the history of me? Who am I? It's weird, man, because I come full circle a lot of times. I'll go years where I feel like I've made strides, and I have in some areas, but the same shit in my head. You hit these cycles. You have these moments where you're realizing, holy fuck, am I just a collection of tics and habits, or a repetition of behaviors and actions that circle back around? It's amazing the limitations that you find in yourself. And then when you talk to somebody like Sasha, who has this freedom of talent to immerse himself in characters on purpose, it seems very liberating to me, because a lot of times we just become the characters we are in as a reaction to the situation we're in. I guess my point is that, for fuck's sake, don't be too hard on yourself if you're a freak inside, and you just say, like, all right, maybe some of that'll come out in a healthy way, and maybe some of that shit I'm just going to have to live with and die with. There's no wide open, man. There is, but it's a pretty fragile place, and it's a pretty fucking rough world. So, underwear. That's something that you can be private with or show other people, but, everybody wears them. What do I have on right now? I'll be honest with you. I have on some jockey boxers that I stole from the set of Maron because I haven't had time to do my laundry, and thank God the wardrobe guy had a clean pair of boxers around, all right? They're not great. They're not MeUndies, I'll tell you that. I have some of those. I have some pairs of MeUndies. They're awesome, but they're in the hamper. I should actually just go wash them. I should go back in the house right now and wash my MeUndies and put them on. I can't even describe the fit and feel of MeUndies, but once you try them out, you'll understand why they're called the world's most comfortable underwear. They're twice as soft as cotton, and if you don't love your first pair of MeUndies, they're free, no questions asked. MeUndies has dozens of styles and limited edition prints to help you make a statement with your underwear. Whether anyone can see them or not, that's up to you. But it's a confidence thing. You'll feel so great in MeUndies, people will just know, all right? They'll change your old disposition. It can be secret or public. I mean, I wouldn't go to work just wearing your underwear, but just hear me out on this and believe me. Shipping is free in the U.S. and Canada, and you can save up to $8 a pair with the MeUndies subscription plan. Whether you get the subscription or a single pair, you can take 20% off your first order when you go to MeUndies.com/WTF. That's MeUndies.com/WTF for 20% off your first order. I do think I did get certainly more than I expected, and had a great conversation with a guy that has been, privately hiding behind characters for a very long time. So enjoy my talk now with Sasha Baron Cohen. I'm very happy you're here. You seem like an elusive character.
Yeah, what, today I do? Or?
No, in general. You're like a rare...
Like we started.
Yeah,
that's it.
Like you're a rare,
We're on.
a rare animal of some sort. It's like, where is
like
that
the
guy?
Yeti.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Who is that guy? Does he do anything outside of the thing?
Not really. Louis C.K.,
yes,
who I heard your interview podcast.
Yeah.
What would you?
Yeah.
What term would you use?
My conversation with
Your conversation. He once came and we employed him for 2 days to work on Bruno, a movie I did called Bruno.
Oh, did you really? Like,
yeah.
What did he do?
Well, a lot of it was. I don't know if you've seen the film. It's this gay Austrian character.
I know the character.
And in it, he has a transformation.
Yeah.
He goes into self-hatred and he becomes an ultimate homophobe. And so Louis came in just for that kind of transition bit, and he was saying there was a lot of advice on how I could build up muscle. So he basically became like, wait, this brilliant comedian. A lot of it was like, if you just, when you're talking to people, just bent. Just, lift, do the curls continually.
While you're talking.
Yeah. And actually, he came up, he said you should do something in the ultimate fighting arena.
Uh-huh. Oh, he came up with that?
Well, he said do something in there. I don't think he quite had what we were actually going to do there. But that was, he had the kind of brainwave of, that is something that would be great to stick a gay man in.
And that was sort of a hairy scene, right? I mean, that almost caused trouble, didn't it?
Yes. So that was a tricky scene, actually. It was tricky. Because we wrote so Louis came in, he had that idea of the ultimate fighting.
Yeah. And
then I'm with my friend Ant Hines. He's this great bald writer that I've been working with for about 18 years.
From Britain?
Yeah, and we were thinking... we want to finish the movie in this arena, like a normal romantic comedy. Has the guy propose to the girl in a stadium full of sports fans, and they kiss and everyone.
On the video thing?
Yeah, it's on the video.
Yeah.
And we thought, all right, let's do that. Let's have all the sports fans.
Yeah.
But let's do it in an ultimate fighting arena, and let me make out with the guy.
Yeah.
So we wrote in the script, all right, we're going to do this, and it's going to turn into a riot. And... we knew it'd be a security issue.
Yeah.
Like, how do you... So I don't know, have you ever been to see an ultimate fighting?
No, it's not. It all...
It doesn't go well with comedy, generally. Comedians don't really proclaim
No, I mean, Rogan's like an actual announcer.
Seth Rogen?
Joe Rogan.
Oh, really?
He's a comedian. He's actually an announcer to me. It's just not my thing. I can't even deal with it ironically. Being around, that much alpha male insanity just kind of creeps me out a little bit. So they don't know. They don't know you're a character.
No. So basically, I thought, how do I get out of there? We're going to have 2,000 rednecks. We want to have a riot, but how do we get out of there? And then
but are they even rednecks? They're more bros. They're more sort of muscle bros, right?
Well, we did it. The first one we did was in Texarkana.
Oh, okay.
Which I'd been to once before. Texarkana is only famous for one thing.
Yeah.
They pulled an African-American man. Well, one person pulled an African-American man behind a pickup truck.
Oh, that's right.
Until he died.
Yeah.
So that's the town.
So they're almost like wrestling fans. They're
wrestling fans. It's an extreme place.
Right.
Basically, we're there on the day, and the question is, we were 200 people short. We didn't have the 2,000. And one of the judges worked at a prison.
Yeah.
At a jail.
Yeah.
And he said, all right, I can get 200 guys. And suddenly 200 guys come out. They're on parole. And these guys had swastikas on their heads. And
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's pretty good. Crazy. So basically, I'm told by my lawyer beforehand because...
to make a will?
Well, firstly, the studio, we did it through this company called MRC, and they go, we just want you to sign this document. I go, what's this document? And it's basically an insurance policy that if I get killed during filming, that they get all their money reimbursed. So I'm like, why? I've never had to sign this, but why don't they go, just sign it, please, otherwise we won't make the movie. So, anyway, get to the thing, and I have this, the night before I'm on the phone with my lawyer, I've got this great lawyer who basically is this gay Southern man. He's a genius in the First Amendment. He lives in India, and he...
How's that happen?
I don't know. He kind of moved to an ashram. He's like a dude.
Okay.
And he's got 15 lawyers working for him. Yeah. And whenever we're in trouble, we call up and they're like, okay, in the case of Smith versus the state of Arkansas, it is very clear that the indemnity So we call them up, and it's really good for us because we can call them up late at night, and they're experts. So he has these 15 guys. One guy is just Arkansas, Texas.
Just all constitutional lawyers.
All constitutional First Amendment law. And so he goes, all right, there's like 12 things you need to know. None of these laws can you break. And the big one was, he said, whatever you do, don't incite a riot.
Right.
Because that's a federal offense. If you're crossing a state line to incite a riot, then that's punishable, by a minimum, I think, 3 years, and it's a federal offense. So that's what the Chicago 7 were up for, actually.
Right, but you would not. It's sort of a gray area. I mean, it's not what you wanted to do.
Yeah, the problem was it was what I wanted to do.
So
I said there's a problem because I am crossing a state line in order to incite a riot at the end, because I thought it would be a great thing for the movie.
Insanity.
Yeah. And so there were about 15 things. He said, whatever you do, so we went through all the nudity laws and the decency laws.
Obscenity.
Yeah. So we had to let people know that there would be nudity. So as a result, I had this poster printed which had girls in bikinis, really hot girls in bikinis going, there will be nudity, ultimate fighting. Obviously, when they got there was male nudity. And then there were about 15 stipulations of I can kiss him on the mouth, I can kiss him on the nipple, I can't put a finger in his rectum.
Right.
He can place a open palm on my arse cheek, but not the moment it gets within 2 centimeters of the rectum, you're done. So basically, Arkansas ended up being one of the only places in America we could get away with it because there was some the indecency laws were kind of framed wrongly. They put the punctuation in the wrong place.
Really?
And so essentially, we thought we could win in a court case.
If you put a finger in a rectum?
Well, no, even those would still be illegal.
Right.
But the idea of kind of making out with the guy and being almost naked was okay.
But so what ended up happening, and how the hell did you get out of there? Because it was bad, right?
Yeah, so it's pretty bad. So I interviewed a bunch of security guys before, and I go, all right, here's your setup. I'm in an ultimate fighting cage, 2,000 guys. They get angry. I'm going to make out with the guy. How do you get me out? And the 7 guys all failed. And then one guy came in. So
you had to tell them the joke. I mean,
I told my security guy that we were hiring. And then a guy came back. He'd just been in Afghanistan looking after Karzai. And he said, all right, sir, trapdoor. Yeah. And he said, that's the only way to get out, which is a trapdoor. So we built a trapdoor in the cage. And then this guy, when he shouted, go, 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 the rule was I had to go.
Right.
So also for the night, he they hired 8 security guys to be around the cage. They're like, there's no way anyone is getting in that cage. And I go, all right, great. So it was interesting, actually, because we're doing the scene, but it's in a real environment.
Right.
And it's the end of the movie, so it has to work. So our aim is I've got to my boyfriend's going to come into the arena, into the ring. I haven't seen him for 6 months. I become this homophobe, disgusting guy called Straight Dave.
Yeah.
And he's going to see me. I'm going to fight him, beat the shit out of him. And then when I'm going to give him the final death blow, I'm going to kiss him instead because he breaks my heart.
Right.
And we're going to make love, and there's going to be a riot.
Yeah.
So that's the aim, and that's the end of the movie, and that's what we have to do. We've got one opportunity to do it. And I said, listen, just in case it doesn't work, let's book another place in Arkansas the night after. So anyway.
It's like Buster Keaton with the general and the train. You only got that one shot when the train blows. And if you didn't get it, it's over.
So I get there, and I made a mistake. Which was in the writing. And this shows you when a scene is wrong and a scene is right, the audience know it. So we're there, and I'm Straight Dave. Come on, you fuckers, everyone, And I get everyone drunk, and they love me. And I go, okay, who wants to fight me? And my boyfriend comes into the room. I haven't seen him. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I do is I attack him. And I beat him up, and he's got fake blood in there. And he's like a weak-looking guy.
Yeah.
And he's bleeding at the end. And the crowd start booing me.
Because you're beating him up.
Yeah, because I'm beating him up. And he's bleeding, and he looks weak. And so I did the one thing that the lawyer told me not to do, which was I challenged the audience to fight me. I said, all right, because I've been told by the bodyguards there's no way anyone's getting in. So, okay, come on, any of you fuckers want to have some shit kicked out of you. I'll rip you apart. And I knew no one could get in the cage. And then at that point, I see like some kind of 6'10" giant, 250-pound, huge, muscly Neanderthal man. Stop running towards the cage. I go, there's no way this guy's getting over. I got security around it. I look down, the security are gone. They're looking off. There's a big fight has broken out with all the the guys from the jail. And there's no one there. I go, all right, he's not getting over this cage. One hand, two hand, and he does a flip and lands, does this somersault, lands. And he's huge. This guy's ripped. He's an ultimate fighter.
Right.
And he, puts his arms in the air and the crowd roar. And basically at that point I hear, go, go, go! I jump out the trapdoor. Anyway, my friend Ant, who's the writer with me, co-writer, we're in this tunnel. So we have a trapdoor. The trapdoor leads to a tunnel. The tunnel goes straight to a car that's got its door open with the engine running. Because we know if we got to go, everyone's going to run after us. Yeah. So anyway, Ant comes into this tunnel and he says, all right, get back in there. Come on, Sash, get in there.
Go back to the ring.
Yeah, go back in the ring. I go, there's a guy in there. He's going to kill me. And not only that, they start throwing metal chairs into the ring. The guys, the inmates in the crowd. He goes, get in there, finish the movie. Come on, we've been working this movie for 2 years. Finish the movie. Go in, kiss your boyfriend, finish the movie. We go home. I go, but they're going to kill me. So I said to the bodyguard, I go, all right, pop your head in, and if I can get in without going to hospital, or going to hospital for a long time, then I'll do it. And he goes, all right. I go, hey, you agree, Ant? Yeah. So the bodyguard puts his head in, and he goes, get out of here! We run, we jump into the car. Then, so we drive over, we're in Texarkana, and word has obviously got out that I'm in town.
They know it's you now.
Yeah, they know it's me. There's 2,000 people there who are looking for me. We get straight in the cars, and we drive through Arkansas to the next place. The police find out about it. I can't remember which town we went to.
So how'd you get that last shot?
So I set up the same ring the next night. We had 2,000 people the next night. And what we did was we couldn't put barbed wire on the top because I had to have some way of stopping people jumping in. Yeah. So I put faked barbed wire on the top of the ring so that people psychologically wouldn't want to jump into the ring.
Yeah.
And we had all the chairs kind of, stuck down with metal, basically, metal chains to prevent them going. And, we did it the next night.
To an unsuspecting audience.
Unsuspecting audience. We had the police there. Yeah. There were about 15 cops there.
And you had the trap door and everything.
Yeah, we had the trap door. And basically the cops said, listen, we heard about Texarkana.
Word is out.
If you break any of these laws, we're arresting you. So it's a bit like the end of the Blues Brothers. I had the cops there. They were going to get me if I broke the law. It's
like a Doors concert.
Yeah.
They're just waiting for you to show your dick.
Exactly. And then, the guy, and then I sort of just want to make sure that nobody got in. And in the end, it kind of really worked. We changed the scene a tiny bit. So I realized that there was a problem with the scene. Because I attacked him, the crowd booed me. This time, I said, I'm going to turn my back to the crowd, and you're going to go and punch me in the head. And he did it, and it was great because he was playing unfairly. The crowd were on my side.
Right.
I then hit him. He hit me. He was tougher. I had some blood. And then the crowd were on my side.
Yeah.
And they were fully behind me. They were ready for me to really hurt him. And that's when I kissed him.
Yeah.
And that's when they freaked out. But they couldn't jump over. And then somehow, so I'm kissing him, making out, and all the time I'm thinking of all the legal laws. Okay, I can stroke his arse. He goes to put a finger in my arse. I'm like, whoa, pull it away. And kissing him. And then at one point, I see another chair flying in. It's a metal chair flying in. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? How did this happen? What happened was somebody had got a knife in and was sawing through the chains.
Commitment.
So committed to hurting me. And then eventually, so I thought, I'm lying on my back and I'm thinking, if I hold my co-star tightly, I can move from left to right and dodge the chairs.
Yeah.
But eventually, after 2 chairs, I hear go, go, go. And the rule was, once you hear go, 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 you have to go.
Yeah, go into the tunnel.
Yeah. So go into the tunnel, into the waiting car, drive off. What we didn't think about, though, was that we had left the crew there with 20 Ultimate Fighters who didn't know what was going on and were really pissed at the crew.
Yeah.
And these 2,000 guys. So it turned into this riot. And in the end, I think it took about 40 cops to march into there to rescue the crew.
Did they get hurt? Anybody?
No, I mean, we had, Larry Charles was the director.
Yeah.
He picked up the monitor. You know, the monitors were really heavy. And he
Yeah.
was, threatening to smash people in the face with the monitor. And they managed to get out all right, yeah.
But, when you're working with Larry and you guys know what this is going to happen, you know this shit is going to happen. I mean, I can see when you're talking about it that it's the excitement of a guy who jumped off a mountain and lived. You know, the thrill of it all. I mean, you're entering this situation knowing full well that this shit, is going to be on some level life or death, right? Larry knows that. You know that.
Yeah.
So, it was worth the risk to you, obviously. But how much of that was really the reason you did it, and how much of it was, to sort of make this provocative piece of film? I mean, it almost seems like extreme sports in itself.
So is the question whether we did it for the film or just the buzz of it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's a really interesting question.
I mean,
I think you get to the heart of it, actually, which is, so when we're making the film, we're 10 guys on the road.
Yeah. This is for all of them, for Bruno and Borat.
Yes,
anyway.
and the Ali G show. And you get addicted to the adrenaline. Once you beat the cops once, you go, all right, great, let's do the next one.
Now?
Yeah, what can we do now? Then you beat the FBI, and then, you start winning.
You beat the FBI with the Ali G show in terms of getting access.
Yeah, getting access to the FBI. Well, on Borat, the FBI started following us. They got so many complaints that there was a terrorist traveling in an ice cream van. That
really?
It was, we shot it 10 years ago, so it was a couple of years after 9/11.
Yeah.
When we actually
so
shot
that's
it.
interesting because that's weird backstory that really adds to the message of the movie that they were that paranoid that they of course the terrorist would be a little fat guy and this guy in an ice cream truck.
Yes, exactly. We're the classic. So the FBI got so many complaints that they started, compiling a little file on us. And eventually they came to visit us at the hotel, and we, I obviously went missing, when I heard, because they were like, FBI's downstairs, Sasha, disappear.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you don't want me to be apprehended. I mean, we had one time in New York when we were
Would you have stayed in character?
Well, the first time, I used to stay in character with the police. You know, the first time I think was in Sedona in Arizona.
Right.
And we didn't really have our shit together, and we didn't know the law well enough. And so I thought...
This was with Borat.
Yeah, with Borat. We were doing the Ali G show, and there was some kind of psychic masseuse who... He was trying to get me to relax. I was being very tense. He goes, listen, I'm going to go out the room. Pardon my terrible American accent, when I come back in, I want you to be relaxed. So he comes back in, and I'm masturbating.
Yeah.
Well, I'm masturbating under the cloth.
Right.
So I thought, what's the big deal? He calls the police... So the police turn up. I'm at the next place, and I'm alone.
Yeah. And
the police sort of surround. I thought, okay, I'll pretend to be asleep. The police pull me out of this car, and they start questioning me. And I'm going, I don't know what the problem is. And they go, what exactly did you do? I go, I was touching my khram and making a swift movement. And they go, sir, what is a khram? A khram, my khram. And, I go to...
made up word?
Yeah, exactly. And then, so I stayed in character. The crew wasn't around. No one was around,
Yeah.
And I remember I went to blow my nose, put my hand in my pocket. The guy pulled his gun. Which you realize, by the way, when you hear about all these kind of African-American kids getting shot, you've got to be so well trained to not get shot.
Right.
If you're in that part.
Right.
It's so easy.
Right.
I was going to blow my nose and the guy was going to shoot me.
Well, it's sort of like you sort of deal with that in the new movie when you finally get the gun.
Yes,
There's that moment, like, oh my God.
Yeah, when you've
so
got a gun,
easy,
you want to shoot it. Yeah. A cop's got a gun, he's going to use it.
Right.
So we handed over the tape, actually, because we didn't realize there was a problem. They wanted the tape. They said, stay here, we're going to have to come back and arrest you. And what we didn't realize was we called up our lawyer in India, and he said, simulating masturbation in Arizona is a crime. and it's 2 years imprisonment. And actually, I think R. Kelly went to jail for that.
Uh-huh.
One of the things he went to jail for. So we said to the lawyer, okay, what do we do? And he said, get on a plane right now. Get out of Arizona.
Run.
Because they've got the evidence. You gave over the tape, which is the worst thing you could ever do.
Right.
But,
so again, getting back to it, so there was some part of you, even though you had the conceit and the structure of what this character was capable of in provoking a social message or a satirical message, but there was some other part of you that was like, how far can we push the law?
Yes.
And that became very exciting.
Well, everything I've ever done, lawyers have immediately said, their knee-jerk reaction has been, it's illegal. We can't do that. Impossible.
Well, they do that with everything. Why not just err on the side of, like, don't do that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, their aim, and I have to always, explain it to the sort of heads of the channels or studios, is the aim of your lawyers is not to tell you what's legal, it's to prevent your company from getting sued.
Right.
And obviously, in Borat, we ended up getting sued, I think, 150 times. But it ended up being very beneficial for Fox.
Uh-huh. Because you knew you were okay.
Yeah, we were all right. We knew we were on the right side of the law.
But they still got to pump some money into, making that clear.
Yes.
The lawyers still have to go like, no, and that costs, $1,000 a second.
Yes, exactly. So you get insurance for the, for the kind of lawsuits. So in the script writing stage of the movie, it's all about, what will make the greatest movie and what will make not the greatest, what will make the best film.
Yeah.
But yes, there is that problem, and obviously, criminals must have the same thing as well, which is once the adrenaline kicks in, you get addicted to the adrenaline, and that's when you start making silly mistakes, and the crew would say, come on, let's just do this and do that.
Yeah.
And that's when actually people can start getting hurt or arrested.
Isn't it interesting, because that momentum, like especially Borat, because that's sort of a masterpiece, and and it's considered that, and it deserves it, and it did show a lot of us more about our country, and it also was hilarious and whatever. But the idea that that if people aren't inherently prejudiced, they are inherently complacent. That they out of politeness they'll go ahead and sing throw the Jew down the wall. They even in that that moment. Like, you didn't get the feeling, like, what, it's a room full of anti-Semites. Yeah. It's actually a room full of fucking hicks that are sort of like, well, let's indulge this guy, you know? But on the other side of that, the flip side that is dangerous is what you're talking about, which is where you get a group of people that get so adrenalized by the possibility of starting shit that shit happens.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's a few interesting issues you brought up there, because you're right, throw the Jew down the well. What does it really show? Does it, and I suppose for people listening out there who haven't seen it,
Google throw the Jew down the well.
You're right. It's much, I don't need to explain it. Okay, yeah. So what does it show? Does it show that the people in that bar are anti-Semitic? No, not really. They probably don't hate Jews. They probably...
Well, here's the moment. As a Jew, here's what I felt, was that, at first they were like, who the fuck is this guy? And then next they realized you're not a threat. He's sort of a clown. So, the song's stupid, he's stupid. Let's indulge the foreigner.
Yeah.
He seems to be trying to speak our language.
Yeah.
But once they all started singing, I had this feeling that, when you started talking about Jews and money and, taken by the horns, that there is part of their, limited intellectual narrative that involves Jews, running the government. So
yes, of course.
That is in place.
And I think you're right. I think it's, what does it show? Is there any satire in it? I think it shows not necessarily that they're anti-Semitic, but I think the dangerous thing is people who are indifferent about evil people, you know. Right. So essentially somebody comes up and has an incredibly racist song against African Americans that's vicious and about them being, the worst stereotypes of African Americans. For a crowd to just come and sing along and go, with the black, whatever the lyrics would be, is almost more dangerous. I mean, I at university, I studied Nazi Germany I specialized in the 20th century.
History.
Yeah. And there was the main historian at the time was this guy called Ian Kershaw, who was the main historian of sort of that period. And he had this sentence which was, the path to Auschwitz was paved with indifference.
Right.
Which I thought it's a great comment. It's not that people are actively hate black people. It's not that people actively hate gypsies or actively hate Jews. it's that they're ready to let it happen.
Well, this is one of these things, like, as an American Jew, you're sort of brought up with this, Holocaust awareness that is sort of plowed into you. And even when I was a kid, I'm 52, they'd show us the movies at Hebrew school, and you really can't wrap your brain around that experience. I mean, it's not that that I'm indifferent, but it's like, how do I really understand that really happened, and that's possible, and it's happening. And then there's, like, outside of the sort of indifference, there's the good German thing that, the people that go along with whatever authority's in place. And I think also, like, what you see in the Borat movie is that as long as it's not us, fuck it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Maybe they are a problem. I don't know.
Yeah.
But where'd you go to college?
I went in England. I went to Cambridge.
So that's a good school.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I went there mainly because of the Cambridge Footlights. So Monty Python came out of the Cambridge Footlights. So I wanted to do comedy.
Which is what, the sort of like theater group kind of?
Yeah, it's
right.
like the comedy group.
Okay.
And ironically, so I went there, I went there to get into this group. It's a bit like the Lampoon, and I was never allowed in.
Really?
Yeah. So that was, I got there the first week, great, do the audition, and couldn't get in. And as a result of that, I ended up doing straight acting. A rumor went round the university that I was this brilliant actor, even though I'd never done any acting before. I got given this lead in a Chekhov play. Yeah. And the rehearsal started happening, and the director said, "Wait a minute, you can't act." And so he said, I'm going to sack you from the, get rid of you.
Yeah.
You can't act.
Yeah.
And in the rest of the cast, they really liked me, and they were like, "You sack him, we all go." And so I ended up actually doing this Chekhov play and ended up doing kind of straight roles.
And how'd you do with it?
It ended up being fine. In the end, I did a kind of sort of funny version of the Chekhov. It was a Chekhov comedy.
But you're always compelled towards comedy.
Yeah.
So where'd this start? Where'd you grow up then? What part?
So I grew up in northwest London.
And what's that like?
It's a kind of pretty Jewish neighborhood.
Yeah.
Sort of middle class.
Yeah. And your dad did what?
Accountant.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
And what did your mom do?
She was like a keep fit teacher.
Keep fit?
Yeah, keep fit. What do you like? Exercise.
She taught classes?
Yeah, I taught classes in the living room. And,
oh, really? In the living room? Like a few ladies?
Yeah.
Some Jewish ladies would come
Jewish
over
ladies from nearby.
do the movements?
Yeah, exactly.
You had a pretty big living room, or was it a very small class?
It was a small class.
She didn't make a living at it necessarily, but her heart was in the right place.
Yeah, exactly.
And how many siblings do you have?
I got 2 brothers.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
And are they in show business?
Well, one is the composer he's a composer, he does all the movies that I do.
Oh, that's nice. Is he out here? Is he in
He's
London?
in London, but he was a jazz musician growing up.
Oh, yeah?
And so the house was always full of music, and he'd take me...
Older brother.
Yeah. Older brother. And so from the age of kind of 12... he was taking me out. He used to do sort of late night jams. That's the only place you could sort of practice your jazz, and he was trying to get into jazz college.
So you'd have to go to these clubs.
So I would go. Somehow my parents allowed me to go to these midnight jams.
Yeah.
We'd get back at like 4 a.m, and then I'd wake up for school at 7.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he ended up, sort of versing that kind of music, and then he started producing a lot of kind of soul and early kind of R&B and that kind of stuff. So we had there was always a kind of, a lot of the artists were round in the living room eating my mum's food. And
oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So your parents were pretty progressive, open, creative people in a way?
Yeah, they were.
Or at least indulged you guys.
Yes, they were happy for us to make some music and muck around.
Be fun.
Yeah.
To be interested in something.
Yeah, well, my dad loved comedy and my mum loves music.
So what was your first exposure to comedy that made you sort of like have that moment where you're like, holy shit?
I think I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And Life of Brian came out in the cinemas.
Oh, yeah.
So it was an X in England.
It's kind of their best movie.
Yeah, it's incredible. And my brothers managed to sneak me into a cinema.
It was an X.
X, which is an 18, I think.
Yeah.
So it got banned. Actually, Life of Brian got banned in a lot of England.
Because of the religious implications.
Yes, the religious stuff. And my brothers took me in. I think it was the first time I'd seen a fully naked woman.
Yeah.
And is there a guy's cock in it?
I feel like there is.
I don't know, in my memory, there's a guy's cock in it.
I think there is, maybe. I'd
like to think so.
Sure, why not? Well, I mean, let's blame that.
Yeah. So, and that obviously, I mean, there's probably a lesson there, which is don't show 8-year-olds X-rated movies.
Comedies with cock in them.
Yeah, exactly. But I just remember loving it, and I was obsessed by Python after that.
Yeah? And so you like watched all the Flying Circus and you watched your other movies?
Yeah, and Meaning of Life. And
yeah.
There was something about going into cinema and there being that outrageous laughter.
Yeah.
I think maybe subconsciously I'm trying to achieve it. I don't know.
No.
I'm not very good at the self-analysis stuff.
Are you not?
No, the English people are not very good at that.
know,
Americans are brilliant at that.
That is sort of true, isn't it? But you grew up with sort of open-minded people who taught exercise classes.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some self-awareness to. There must have been a little of that.
I don't know. I don't think in England there's much self-awareness. I think if people are what they describe as mentally ill here. In England, you just call them eccentric. So everyone finds them like fun, eccentric.
You kind of indulge them until they're annoying, and you're like,
exactly.
That's that guy.
Yeah. There'd be some guy flashing his privates in the nearby park. Oh, it's just some eccentric guy.
So when did you first start performing comedy of any kind?
So I think I was about 9 years old when I wrote my first sketch.
Based on a Python sketch, kind of, probably.
Yeah, that
Tonally.
kind of. I mean, it's terrible, but I was in this kind of Jewish youth club, and they would do kind of final performances and final parties, and I would write a little sketch, and I'd get sort of excited about it.
Yeah,
and then I don't know. I started doing a little routine with my brother on the circuit. He was a musician, as we said.
On what circuit? The Jewish Youth Club circuit?
It was kind of the Jewish old age home circuit.
How old were you then?
I was about 16, and we would dress as Hasidic Jews and sing like Jewish songs.
Yeah.
And one of the songs was this song called Schwitzing, which was about how these Hasidic Jews get so hot that they end up shaving their beards and taking their clothes off and actually converting to Christianity at the end. And it would go down terribly. I mean, these old age homes would hate it.
Who was booking you?
I don't know, but people were like, please take the money, never come back here again.
What did you call yourselves? The Cohen brothers? What was it?
I can't remember, the Schwitzing brothers. But eventually I got seen doing that, and I got hired by the Paramount Comedy Channel to do Bruno, actually. To do like some kind of undercover stuff.
The version of Bruno. You come up with Bruno at that point.
Well, I did this. I started doing this cable show when I was about 23.
Yeah.
And it had about 40 viewers. But I was doing these characters.
Yeah.
And one of the characters was this early form of Ali G.
Yeah. But Ali G, like, this is what's interesting. Also interesting about the Brothers Grimsby is that these characters, that guy, what's his name? Guy you play?
Nobby.
Nobby is a very specific British type.
Yeah.
What you were lampooning is very specific British type, as was Ali G, and both of them are, we can get it enough. We know what the American version is. But, Ali G, I still don't know exactly what his background would be or who that guy, what was his life like?
Yes, well, it was intentionally ambiguous. So, Ali G, the idea was, how could I go into a room with a very intelligent person, somebody who is an expert, usually a member of the upper class, and ask the most idiotic questions possible and not get thrown out of the movie?
Right.
So, I decided that if he had this, whiff of ethnicity about him, and possibly even Islam or Pakistan or whatever, that their prejudice would lead them to assume that I could be incredibly badly educated.
Their white guilt would indulge you, because it would look that sort of like, oh, look, I'm talking to one of them.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And also their stereotype of the uneducated ethnic masses, meant that they believed that somebody as idiotic as Ali G could exist, when actually Ali G couldn't exist. There's nobody that. If you were that, if somebody was that stupid, they probably would die. They would. The one iota more, they'd actually be dead.
Right.
Yeah. The idea was he was ethnically ambiguous. As a result of that, within like a couple of weeks of putting him out on air, there are a few ethnic communities that claimed me as their own. So the Greek community said, he's Greek. And the Pakistani community said, he's Pakistani. And actually part of the black community said, he's black. Yeah. Even though I wore no makeup, and as you can see, I'm pretty damn white.
Yeah.
And then at some point it came out that I wasn't any of those and I was actually Jewish. And then at that point I was accused, a black paper in England wrote an article saying, is Ali G racist? Which is a bizarre question because Ali G is a fictional character.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe he is racist. We hadn't worked it out. We hadn't.
Right.
But I think they were asking the question of, was the creator of Ali G racist? And they asked a bunch of black comedians. 8 of them said no, and 2 of them said, one of them said, I don't know, and one of them said, yeah, he's a racist. That led to headlines in all the newspapers in England.
One comedian.
Yeah.
Tabloid-driven culture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All the tabloids wrote, Ali G is a racist. And they didn't even know, I think a lot of them didn't know my name, and it became, at that point, I had this dilemma, which was, do I come out and say, come on, man, I'm an anti-racist? And, racism and anti-racism is a issue that I feel strongly about. You know, when I was, in my 20s, I used to march against racists and fascists and neo-Nazis. And, at university, my undergraduate thesis was all about racism. So, and how to combat that.
So what were the questions you were asking yourself? I mean, did you have to do some soul searching around how that character was being misunderstood, or was there?
No, I didn't have to do any soul searching. My thing was, I knew where I stood on race. I knew that I was vehemently against any form of racism.
Yeah.
And I wanted to shout out and, say to the press, I'm not a racist, and here's my evidence. But I decided to do nothing. We were making the Ali G show at the time, and me and the producer sat down. We just said, you know what? Let's just work.
Don't engage. Yeah.
And for a week, the press debated it as to whether it was a racist.
And you're just watching them talk about this clown you invented.
Yes. And basically, at the end of the week, they concluded that it's not racist at all. And some of the kind of greatest intellectuals in England came out and said, he's not a racist. But by the end of the week, by doing nothing, I become, from this niche comedian, I became a household name.
Because of that.
Because I said nothing.
Because of the public argument about whether or not the character was racist or whether that it represented racism.
Yes.
But, didn't Ali G have some Caribbean affect a bit?
Yes, yeah. He wanted to be black. He wanted to.
Sure.
So he spoke in Jamaican patois.
Right. Yeah.
And the idea was he was this probably middle, and it was ambiguous, sort of lower middle class guy.
Yeah.
From some kind of ethnic background, it's unclear and irrelevant actually, who was unhappy with how mundane his own ethnic life was, and actually wanted to adopt this exciting foreign African American gangster culture.
Right.
So,
it's a complete. That was what I think what blew everyone's mind here was this is a completely unique and ambiguous ethnic character.
Yeah.
That the fact that it didn't land on the radar in any sort of set way made it even more interesting and more empathetic in a way.
And I had some kind of affinity with Ali G. I mean, my first way I made money from the age of sort of 11 to 14 was as a sort of break dancer, a breaker on the, I used to go out on the streets, had one friend, and we used to go and make some.
You can do it? You put the cardboard down?
We used to put the cardboard. We had a linoleum.
Oh, you did? So you guys were pros. You had linoleum. You had a floor.
Yeah, we were terrible, but.
Oh, you were no good?
We were so young that we made some money.
People were like, look at them trying.
Yeah, exactly. And they gave us, we'd make £15. But if you're 11 years old, you made 15 quid. That was a lot. So there was part of me that identified as this kind of nebbishy kid.
Yeah.
Who saw this rising movement of hip-hop. I mean, prior to that, it was kind of electro across the pond. I was like, oh, my God, that seems amazing.
Yeah.
And we fully embraced it. We got into the graffiti and the language. And so Ali G, as a result, I had a lot of knowledge about early hip-hop. And, this is quite strange, actually, talking about this to an American audience. But,
oh, no, it's great.
So some geeky white kid. This is the influence that the African-American community had in the early 80s.
So now, how, because even in this new movie, there was points in the new movie, I sat in the screening room at your editor's office last night.
That's not a fun way to watch a movie. You want to have 300 people around you.
No, but I'm glad I got to see that. It seemed to be the only way. But what's interesting, in talking about Ali G and then talking about Borat or any of the stuff that's relatively that's very provocative, in that very prank way. But the underlying story of this thing, after all is said and done, after you really, I don't want to spoil anything, but you do have the biggest dick joke, I think, in recorded film history.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Did the Oscars have a category for that?
Well, I think they'll make one.
Yeah, exactly.
They're under a lot of fire. Yeah. Maybe you should just get involved with that.
Yeah.
The story is about a sort of, it's in defense of the lower class at some level.
Yes.
Like you are fighting for the little guy.
I think class in England is still an issue.
Yeah.
So
we don't call it that here.
Yeah, there is no class here. I mean, that's
there is, but it's not. We don't call it that. We just call the people that would be categorically lower class. We've convinced them that just keep working.
Yeah.
And you can be higher class, and that then they'll think according to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting here actually because the American dream, the brilliant thing about it is that if you're lower class or working class or however you want to describe it, you actually want to aspire to be what would be termed in England as upper class, because that's the dream.
Right.
So in England, you don't really have that aspiration of escaping your class.
No, you're it.
And there's a pride in being working class.
Yeah.
Therefore, you have some people who are fake working class, people who speak in a Cockney accent, even though they actually went to Eton or, went to some real fancy school.
Yeah.
Because they get more cred by being working class. But yeah, I mean, part of Ali G, if I think about it, there was an attempt subtly to slightly undermine the establishment. So the establishment at that point was partly upper class.
Uh-huh.
And the idea was, if I sit down with this incredibly powerful person, and that person indulges me for an hour with the most idiotic questions, then maybe that person should not be given complete respect.
Right.
For somebody to actually sit in a room for an hour and believe that guy existed means that maybe, the populace shouldn't necessarily give that person complete authority.
Right.
So it's a way of slightly pricking the authority.
No, it seemed like that was the whole agenda of Ali G, was to show that this class difference was real and that there was no negotiating it.
Yeah.
They're just going to condescend, and they're going to behave politely, and they're going to hope you go away back to your little neighborhood or whatever.
Exactly.
Right.
And they're going to feel good about themselves.
Sure, because they talk to you.
Yeah. I remember I did an interview here with James Lipton from the Actors Studio, and he started telling me he was very excited to tell me that he'd had African-American men over to the house and, told me off camera and,
right.
Barbershop choirs. And,
It's like that Lenny Bruce bit about how to what is it? How to entertain your black friends at parties? Or
exactly. But the irony was I was completely white. And, But he was trying to get down with Ali G.
Sure. How much does your Jewishness or your faith inform your way of thinking? I mean, how Jewish were you brought up? I mean, you got a hell of a Jewish name.
Yeah, Baron Cohen. Well, I don't think that much, really. I mean,
but did you practice? Was there some education? Did you have, relatives or grandparents that that taught you what it meant to be, the sort of premium put on education and progressiveness? I mean, was that part of your upbringing?
Well, that's an interesting question, because the thesis that I did at university was all about Jews in the Black Civil Rights Movement here, and I call it the Black Civil Rights Movement because that was the term they used at the time. So in the 60s.
Yeah.
And the question was, why did Jews get involved in the Black Civil Rights Movement more than any other ethnicity? Sometimes they were represented probably 10, 20 times more than they should have been proportionally. And the question was it because they were Jews, or was it for some other reason? And, my research and my conclusion was basically Jews in America at the time were the most liberal ethnic group. And they were probably the most activist group in any liberal political movement. So,
because of the roots in early socialism and getting out of the sweatshops and that first generation immigrants, that they had united to integrate themselves into America.
Yes. So, you basically see that the same percentage of Jewish students who are involved, in the Black Civil Rights Movement are then moving on straight from that into the anti-Vietnam War movement.
Right.
So, people like Abby Hoffman and, people like that. So, and the interesting thing is those people who were Jews didn't get involved as Jews in the civil rights movement. They got involved because they were liberals. And they were like, there's this racist stuff going on. We want to fight it.
Right.
But for the kind of rest of the Jewish community, they were like, these Jews are getting involved and, isn't this great? We're helping black people. And
we are.
Yes.
The ones who were middle-class Jews that had no real political affiliation necessarily, out on Long Island were like, that's very nice that those kids are doing it.
But really, the kids who were getting involved weren't getting involved as Jews. And what I found out was that the African Americans thought that they were just white people. They didn't see these people as Jews.
Right.
They were like, all right, a bunch of white guys are getting involved, and we don't know what their ethnicity is.
Yeah.
And so the question is why people do stuff. Is it, because of their racial or ethnic identity, or is it something deeper? So I think, I didn't get involved in comedy or any of this stuff because I'm a Jew. I think there's probably some reason that Jews are over-involved in the comic community. I don't know. I mean, why are you involved? Do you think it's because you're Jewish?
No, but I feel like there was part of my upbringing, probably because I lived here, that most of the comics that when I was a kid, outside of, SNL and stuff, most of the stand-up comics that I gravitated towards were old Jews. Like, I liked a lot of the old Jewish guys. There was a cultural identification that I found, compelling at my grandparents' generation, that there was a type, the deli type, or, there was a neurotic type, and that a lot of them seemed to have a quick timing, that it was all very specifically Jewish, and it helped me sort of identify. I think when I was younger, I did a Woody Allen play, that Don't Drink the Water, and I played Walter, and I played him like, what are you kidding? And it was very easy for me to slip into that, because it was, I wanted it to be tangible to me. I wanted that to be part of my cultural heritage.
Yeah.
And it just was by virtue of the fact that, I grew up in it somewhat. I identify with it, but I don't know if that's why. I did, there was a period where I separated myself from my Jewish identity. I refused to talk about being a Jew on stage because you wouldn't necessarily know I was a Jew immediately. And I got very annoyed with the stereotype of the Jew.
Yeah, sure.
And I didn't want to fall into that. Now I'm a little less worried about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if I'm going to become an old Jew of some sort, I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I know that your grandparents, part of your family's Israeli, right?
Yes, my mother is actually,
Like from Israel.
Yes, yeah.
So you have that part. Because that's a whole different thing than I imagine middle-class British Judaism, and certainly from, middle-class American Judaism.
Yeah.
The Israeli thing is like this whole other animal.
Yeah. It's totally the kind of opposite to the rest of it.
They're
tough,
Right.
Yeah.
So your mother was a tough Israeli.
I don't know if she's tough. She's she's a formidable, hilarious woman.
Yeah. But did you do the pilgrimage? Do you go to Israel? Do you have relatives in Israel? Did you?
Yeah. I've got relatives in Israel. I mean, it's interesting because we grew up, that side of the family were not into humor.
Yeah.
And my dad, we'd go and visit her parents, and my dad would be making jokes all the time, and my late grandfather would get very angry and say, stop making these diaspora jokes.
Diaspora jokes?
Yeah, he was a German. They were German.
Oh, yeah.
And very, very German. They were extremely into culture, very precise.
German Jews are a little, it's heavy. I mean,
they're
like
tough.
They're
do
aristocratic.
Well, my late grandmother, who only died last year, actually, she was apparently she was the oldest Keep Fit teacher in the world.
So this Keep Fit is a tradition.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
So I actually did a video online. If you look up 99-year-old Keep Fit teacher, that was my late grandma who died last year. And somebody once asked her, they took her to Bruno to see the movie Bruno, which I don't know why the hell my cousins did that. And she saw it and she said, well, I didn't like it. And they go, well, what kind of humor do you like? And she said, ballet. And that really is the German Jewish answer, But they are not into humor, and I think it's the Jews that were in England and America. Our way of Coping with everything is making jokes.
But not only coping, but integrating.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a lot of what happened was that, Jews were not really welcome, but eventually people realized, like, well, they're pretty smart and, they seem to have a handle on some shit.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to tolerate them somehow. So I think that, like, I didn't realize that in the 1920s there was a bunch of Jewish boxers.
Yes.
Like, in that...
Yeah.
Any way that they could integrate, so, they could either pass or at least have a community within what America was at that time, they would do it.
Yeah.
And entertainment seemed to be like, it was very insulated, and then it sort of branched out, and everybody thought the Jew was funny.
Yeah.
So you never really moved here. I mean, you here to L.A. I mean, you sort of mostly live in London still.
We're here probably half the year.
Yeah.
And then the way it works is we're off filming somewhere for 3 months a year, and then 3 months a year we're in London,
Did you ever end up studying acting or any part of performance?
Yeah, I did. When I was in university, I came up with this character called Solly. He was an idiot. He was like my first kind of real character.
Yeah.
And I came up with it one night, and I had my roommate came back, and I go, I want to play you this tape. And he started really laughing hard. And a friend of mine in the sort of acting group in university said he'd just gone to this clown course run by this guy called Philip Gaulier.
He's famous, right?
And
famous
he's
clown.
like the clown teacher in the world. People sort of travel from around the world to see him. He was part of this school called Lecoq.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
and
Lecoq in
where
Paris.
it comes from.
Exactly, that's where the word comes from. And so I decided, all right, let me try and find out whether this idiotic character I was doing is actually a clown character. I want to kind of learn about it. And so I left university and studied with this guy
For how long?
For about 6 months.
Really?
Yeah.
And was it amazing?
Oh, incredible! This guy is the legendary guru for any person who wants to be a professional idiot around the world. So he teaches pure clown, and he teaches this other style of comedy called bouffon, or buffoon.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that kind of style? So it's a really it's this medieval style of kind of satire.
So like your sidekick in Borat is sort of buffoon.
Yeah. Right. And his theory, because I went to my clown teacher afterwards, Philip Gaulier, and I said, yeah, I'm doing clown. And he goes, no, you're a bouffon. I go, really? I'm buffoon. And he goes, and so that style was, so there was this kind of, in the, I think sort of 11th to 15th century, you'd have a bunch of outcasts from society who would, gays, heretic priests, Jews, people with deformities would sort of be told to live outside off villages, in their, sort of in the forests or, in little ghettos.
They were ostracized because they're deformed or stupid.
Or freaks of some nature.
Right.
Then once a year they were let back into the villages or towns, and they would be allowed to put on bouffon plays. And so you'd have like some guy who was, 3.5 foot tall.
Yeah.
Would pretend to be the King of France and do a bouffon play. I'm the King of France. And the aim of the bouffon was that the King of France would watch the bouffon play and go, that's not me. That's not me. That's not me. That's that guy is tiny. He's 3 foot tall. And, the 3 foot tall guy go, what are you talking about? I am the king. I am the king. Don't be telling me I'm not the king. I am the king. And the king would go, it's me. I'm not the king. And eventually the king would have a heart attack and die. And then the bouffon will go, that's one for me. And so it's a really nasty form of satire. It's really kind of horror. It's the kind of humor of the dispossessed.
Uh-huh.
And I ended up using the technique a little bit in the publicity campaign for Borat.
Uh-huh.
When it came to, I ended up hosting the MTV Awards in Europe as Borat.
Yeah.
And there was one little sketch I did where the president of Kazakhstan comes onto the stage, and to show my respect, I got down on my knees and I kissed his crotch.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, the government of Kazakhstan then complained to MTV, and they complained to the British government. And there was they complained to Fox as well. You could say, you've got to stop making this movie. And then at that point, I realized, okay, there's an opportunity. You know, they wrote this letter going, how can this man be a real Kazakhstan? His mustache is too big. In Kazakhstan, our mustaches are smaller.
They did that?
Yeah, so they kind of wrote this letter to the British.
Did your work for you?
Yeah, exactly. So I realized, all right, this reminds me actually of the kind of theory of Buffon. So when it came to the promotion of Borat, I heard that the president of Kazakhstan was coming to America.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, I'm going to Washington. And the studio freaked out. They were like, you're not going to Washington. You're not making this movie political.
Yeah.
I said, well, you know what? I own the character. I'm going to Washington. So I went to Washington, and we found out, I decided I wanted to do a press conference outside the Kazakhstan embassy, claiming to be the representative of Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
And so obviously they found out we were coming. So we did some recon and found out that we had like a 15-minute window when the president of Kazakhstan would be heading to the White House. So in that 15 minutes, we jumped there, we called with the press there, and I delivered this press conference.
Yeah.
Saying, you know, I want to say on behalf of Kazakhstan that the Jew Cohen have made a mockery. He have said some terrible rumors about our country, like that we have democracy and we treat women respectfully. Of course, these are scurrilous lies. And then as a result of that, the government of Kazakhstan did a publicity campaign. They hired a PR company, and they said, all right, we're going to do a PR campaign to show that Kazakhstan is a great place. And they put about $30 million into promoting the real Kazakhstan. However, for the audience were watching these TV ads, and they thought I'd put the TV ads on.
Right.
You know, they were so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, come to Kazakhstan, we have fantastic potassium deposits. You know, they were so ridiculous. And so they ended up really promoting the movie. But it was really using that Buffon theory.
That's hilarious. And why'd you pick Kazakhstan?
There was nothing about Kazakhstan. I mean, originally Borat had a kind of different name, and he was from a different country. He was from Moldova, and then he went to Albania. And it kind of, his name and the country he came from changed according to whichever company I was working for.
So what we've learned here, you know, it essentially is that despite whatever distance you may take from your creativity, you know, initially, right, which is sort of like, I don't know what's going to, is that, you know, both with Ali G and with Borat, you were very sort of decisive and intelligent about utilizing particular modes of satire to achieve these ends.
Yes.
And you
know, to a degree. Yes.
So now, please tell me about the difference between clowning and Buffon.
So beautifully pronounced.
Because it seems to me that this 6 months at the clown college, Le Coq?
Yeah.
Was really what opened you up creatively.
Yeah. I loved it because people were coming from around the world, and this guy, Philippe Gaulier, would sit there with a little drum.
Yeah. And
if you weren't funny, he'd hit the drum and you'd go off.
Really?
Yeah.
And was this only with physicality, or could you talk? Or
no, you could talk as well. You could talk. It was kind of talking clown, and, you know, you wore a red nose.
You did.
You wore a red nose, and so some people would start bursting into tears. You know, they'd flown all the way from Australia.
Yeah.
They'd walk on stage, and within 3 seconds, he hits the drum, and they have to sit down. And he would let me go on stage sometimes for 15 minutes. And so the rest of the class started hating me.
Yeah.
And me and this guy from Sweden would have this kind of double act where we never would do the exercises. We'd stay on. We wouldn't understand. If he hit the drum, he'd say, "Get off! You get off the stage right now. You're a bad student. Go and sit on the chair for the bad student." And, you know, I'd just sort of stand. No, a good student. You know, and we did this kind of carry. I didn't know what was going on. It was this kind of surreal experience. He never really explained what was going on. But over those 6 months, I kind of got confidence in doing this kind of style of comedy. So I suppose the difference is Buffon is this nasty, knowing form of satire. That the aim is to undermine the establishment.
Right.
And clown is a more simple and loving character. So the clown is the simpleton who has the naivety of a child and is as stupid as a child. It's the reason why if a 3-year-old kid walks into a room, everyone laughs.
Yeah.
It's because the kid is saying really stupid things.
Yeah.
But in a very nice, sweet way. And that really is what the clown is doing. You know, so the rule with clown is if this character was 1 degree more stupid, he'd probably be dead.
Right.
Because he wouldn't be able to survive. He couldn't cross a road or...
So Ali G.
Yeah. So Ali G was that guy who...
Yeah.
But, you know, you can sort of believe this guy exists.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that you've created hybrids of these two characters. Right?
Yeah.
You seem like Borat could sort of go either way.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought I knew what I was talking about, and I went to the clown teacher, and he said, no, you got it completely wrong. So,
yeah, it's interesting, right? And like Bruno is also a hybrid, but this guy in the Grimsby movie is sort of almost straight clown. In a way.
Yes. Yeah. He's more of a simpleton. Yeah.
Well, I know I'm being, narrow by using these titles or these labels, but I mean, coming from what you come from, in that's how you sort of learn how to learned your comedic craft.
Yes.
Along these lines, but are also somehow able to integrate a full, seemingly a full emotional and psychological life, which would be the actor in you, into these clowns and bouffons.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah. So what? Listen to me using the word interesting. It's horrendous.
Well, you've just used the word bouffon. So,
Well, I'm excited about that.
Exactly.
Now, I guess my question then is that, after obviously you played out the ability to efficiently or at least stealthily prank because of your notoriety, and it feels like it's been a bit since you've done something like that, with those three characters. Was there ever a thought of using prosthetics or continuing that tradition, or is that something you exhausted?
I miss it. I miss the adrenaline, and I miss the, those sketches were kind of pure comedy.
Yeah.
You go out with a pure comic idea and you see, can I make it happen?
Yeah.
But I think it will be impossible to really get away with those characters anymore.
Right.
Mind you, on Friday, I did a little piece. I went out as myself, as a kind of BBC reporter, asking people what they thought of Sasha Baron Cohen movies.
And they had no idea it was you.
Well, 1 in every sort of 4 didn't really know it was me.
Right.
And, some people got really riled up. One person called me a cunt.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as I talk to you, and the more I realize that how much of the drive of these characters, the prank characters, was to push the First Amendment, to ride a line with that, and to push this idea. Because in the new movie, the level of I don't even like the word crass, but extraordinarily graphically executed, filthy jokes.
Yes, that's my specialty.
Yeah, but you love it.
Yeah, I don't know why. I actually don't know. I blame Python. I blame Python.
You do. You blame Life of Brian.
I remember Meaning of Life.
Oh, with the fat guy?
Yeah, the fat guy.
Right.
It was shocking but funny, and for some reason I'm drawn to that. And I know it alienates a lot of the audience, and I'm always stuck with that question of, do I broaden the audience and make this a kind of family movie, which all the other comedians do, or do I narrow the audience?
Well, I think what you get when you do it your way is you get the possibility of... Here's the one downside of it, even with some of the prank movies, is that you're going to get people who are smart and are willing to be open-minded enough to indulge even the most dramatically crass satire, and that type of over-the-topness has always been part of satire. To push it, it's almost Swiftian, or Baudelaire, or any of them, where everything is just things are ripping at the seams, and there's blood and guts and goo . But I think that the liability of it, you're going to get a lot of morons who are like, oh shit, oh look at that, you fucking on his face.
Yeah.
But so on that level, it is appealing to a broad audience.
Yeah,
just not kids, but maybe morons.
Yes, yeah.
Not to hurt anybody.
I don't like to discriminate against morons.
Well, no, the whole movie's about that.
Yeah,
it's about not discriminating against morons.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And what's that guy's name who plays your brother?
He's a Mark Strong.
He's like an action movie guy.
Yeah, he's a complete... Well, the idea with this movie was, let's make it a completely authentic action movie, and my character accidentally falls into it. So let's keep the genre... Yeah. Rather than doing a parody or an action comedy, let's make it an action movie that has some really funny stuff in. So
yeah, you went all the way. You went all out with that sequence, that opening sequence that introduces the action movie. It was like, holy shit.
Yes. So we thought because that was some of the action comedies that I didn't really like. That they go, all right, let's do a little bit of action, and then let's get a second unit director in, and it's good enough.
Yeah.
And when we've been doing any of these movies like Borat, we wanted it to be an authentic documentary that unfortunately has this idiot Kazakhstani reporter in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So the idea was there's this authentic action movie that could rival, feel like a cool action movie.
Right.
But Sasha Baron Cohen's in it.
Did you direct it?
No, we had Louis Leterrier, who's this action director. And he's like a full-on, hardcore action director to get that kind of authenticity.
Right, and it's there. And the funny thing is, playing the comedy against that, or integrating the two, there's some sort of like goofy turns.
Yes.
But it's still, once you buy the conceit, you kind of go with it.
Yeah.
And then you wait for the next, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, with the what's her name? Sibade?
Gabourey Sidibe, yes.
Oh, my
the girl from Precious.
Yeah. Like, there's a moment there where you're like, is this right or wrong?
Yes. Yeah.
But what's unique to you is that somehow or another, this moron, this fool, is endearing. In the midst of all this stuff, that he has this weird kind of earnestness to him, and all those guys who play his friends in the town and everything. It's all it's definitely very Python-y in a way.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do, man? I mean, do you want to stay doing comedy? Do you have a desire to do straight acting? I mean, I know like people make a comparison to you and Sellers, and you haven't mentioned Sellers. How do you take that comparison? Like either it's going to be Andy Kaufman or Peter Sellers, I think, generally.
Well, Sellers would be the greatest comparison I could ever get. I mean, I'd say it was, Python for the laugh out loud extremity, but Sellers was the inspiration in that I think he's the greatest comedic actor who's...
The commitment.
Yeah, the commitment and the believability of the characters and the subtlety.
Yeah.
But yet they were still hilarious. You never doubted that Clouseau could exist.
Right.
There was no wink to the camera. And, I mean, apparently a horrible man, but what a performer and what a comedian. Possessed.
Yeah.
I mean... Yeah, I thought he was kind of inspirational. So if I could get any comparison with him, I'd be amazingly pleased.
And what was the movie of his that, really sort of, was it Clouseau that made you sort of like
As
realize?
a kid, it was Clouseau.
Yeah.
And I think then Strangelove, and then being there was amazing. This kind of subtle, that kind of is a clown performance.
Yeah, it is.
He's out of it, and he's misinterpreted, and...
Yeah. And he's a child.
Yeah, he's a man-child.
Yeah.
He's a man-child.
And what about the comparisons to Andy? Do you...
Well, I didn't grow up watching Kaufman, and in England he wasn't really popular. So when I came here, then I got sent some of his DVDs, and there's brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
I feel, in a way, he's probably more of an artist than I am, in that I don't think he cared what the audience thought. And I really, deep down, I want to make people laugh, and that's why I fight to get stuff to be funny and get big laughs in the audience. And I'll go to war with whichever studio has been stupid enough to pay me money to make a movie. So, they probably hate me at Sony because they go, why are you still fighting for these gags, But once I love a gag and once I think I've got to get this on screen, I will fight tooth and nail to get the gag on screen.
Right. There's a lot of gags.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the end there was a disclaimer. Daniel Radcliffe had nothing to do with the movie?
Nothing to do with the movie.
You put him in there.
We stuck him in there,
Yeah. And Trump as well.
Donald Trump makes an appearance in the movie.
Yeah,
we won't say what happens to him, but that was
either of them. We don't have to say what happens to either of them.
I actually I interviewed him once as Ali G, and I remember being in his office, and he kept me waiting, I think about an hour and a half, which is fine. But during that time, he was screaming so loudly. It was like, get me the mayor of New York on the phone. Give me the mayor. It was like this kind of bad villain in a cheap, in a bad Batman movie.
Mm-hmm,
screaming at Giuliani on the phone. I just thought it was an incredible character. I couldn't believe he existed.
Yeah. Well, he does, in a big way now.
He exists. I mean, could he be president? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't think.
I
so.
mean, it'd be great for comedians and great for satirists, but terrible for the world.
But I think it's sort of a testament to, you know, sort of what we were talking about before about sort of, you know, mining the anger of the disenfranchised to make them complicit in a momentum that will ultimately betray them.
Yes, and he's able to do that. There was a line in The Dictator, at the end of The Dictator, the guy who plays the dictator, I play the dictator, but Admiral General Aladdin does this speech about dictatorships, and one of the lines is, I think, as I remember, it's, you know, we can get poor people to vote against their interests, you know, one of the great things you can do in dictatorships, and it's what clever politicians end up doing, which is vote for me and I'm going to look after your interests, which are policies which prevent you from getting money.
Right.
You know.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was in The Dictator.
Yeah, there was some speech at the end. I should remember it, but I can't really.
Did you write it?
Yes. I mean, I wrote it. It was actually Adam McKay had the idea for that speech, and then I was kind of reading a lot of stuff at that time. There were a lot of riots going on in England, off the kind of disenfranchised, and there was the Occupy Wall Street movement at the time. So it kind of influenced that speech.
Do you want to do more serious stuff or what?
I don't know. There's not really a plan.
No?
You know, the plan, I live joke to joke, really. You know, I really do. I kind of, you know, think of an idea for a movie and then how do I make it as funny as I can, and then how do I make the movie happen? And it's unfortunately continually a battle trying to get that stuff on screen now. I feel like studios, particularly post the North Korean hack, are a lot more conservative in what they'll put on screen. I think the sad thing about the North Korean hack with Sony was, you know, it's a way for totalitarian states that have no freedom of speech to extend the sphere of their influence.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the great reasons why America is a great country is you have freedom of speech. How do you prevent freedom of speech? You have totalitarian states threaten the people who control and create entertainment with acts of terrorism and say, all right, you do anything that's going to upset us, we're going to shut your movie, we're going to shut your studio down, we're going to threaten to bomb your cinemas.
Yeah.
So now in the back of studios' minds, they don't want to do anything to upset any incredibly powerful force, whether it's North Korea. You know, I wonder whether, given this political climate, whether if I was, you know, a comedian from the Ali G show and some, you know, niche HBO show and said, listen, I walked into Fox today and said, listen, I want to make a movie about Kazakhstan. I wonder whether the heads of Fox would say, yeah, we'll do the movie, but we're not using a real country.
Right.
That country's going to go and, you know, attack us, you know.
Right. I wonder.
Yeah, I think there is, you know, studios now, and I don't want to sound like the kind of liberal Jew, but studios now are generally owned by multinationals, and they want to risk as little as they can and minimize liability. So the problem with that is something like Borat. It's a crazy experiment. I mean, it was a mad experiment, and it could only exist with a studio that said, "Here, listen, here's $14 million. Go and do it. This guy will make $14 million in Europe,
and if you die, we're still going to make $40 million.
Yeah,
if
we're
you just sign
fine.
this,
we're fine. You know, but you need to do something that's new.
Yeah,
you need to have. You know, you need to have heads of studios who feel confident, and you know, I think they
take chances.
Yeah, and I think the heads of the studios are, you know, good people who are talented, and I think a lot of them love movies and love art.
Yeah,
but their hands are slightly tied now by these, you know, legal
Bottom
departments
line.
in the, you know, in the multinationals that control them.
Right. This movie feels like right out of the gate, like the new movie, the Brothers Grimsby. Is that like right out of the gate? I thought like, well, this is sort of a British movie.
Yeah,
I think like, do you feel like that you made it like a little bit for the British audience?
Yeah, it's for England, you know. Yeah. But at the beginning, Borat was a kind of Kazakhstani movie as well. So we thought, listen, when we thought we're going to we thought no one was going to ever see Borat.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a movie about a Kazakhstani documentary.
Yeah.
So how do you sell that?
Oh, come on. You know that guy. That was a great character.
I knew it was a good character, but I didn't think anyone would watch it. And it had anti-Semitic content in there. We thought no one would ever go and see it.
It's huge.
Yeah, it ended up being good.
And how do your parents feel about your work?
I think they like it. I think they, sometimes it's embarrassing for them, but generally they're fully supportive, and I couldn't really have done any of it without their blessing.
What's embarrassed them?
I think they found Bruno quite extreme, which it was. I mean, I can't believe actually in retrospect that a major studio released that movie. I mean, it had a 35-second close-up of a man's penis.
Yeah.
It should have really been an art house movie that got released in...
Yeah. Didn't you get into some trouble with a group of guys, too, where you almost got your ass kicked? Was that in Bruno?
Yes, I got, there are a few different, I almost got killed in Jerusalem, actually, ironically, by a bunch of Hasids. And then there are a few different incidents. I went hunting with a bunch of guys who, once they realized I was gay, there was some line where we're around this campfire. We're in this kind of private hunting estate where they have canned hunts.
Yeah.
And I look into the sky and I go, look at all the stars up there. It really just reminds you of all the hot guys in the world, doesn't it? And there was a silence then from these three guys who realized they're with a gay guy.
Yeah.
And I'm going camping with them and I'm going to, be in a tent next to theirs. They then get up, they take their rifles, and they load their rifles. They put ammo in their rifles. And I had a researcher there, and I go, what's going on? He goes, they've, loaded their rifles. I go, why? And he goes, well, they've said that there are boars here, and they don't want any animals to kind of attack them at night. But then I knew the rest of the scene was I was going to have to go naked into one of their tents and try and get into their tent and sleep with the guy. And so...
so they could have shot you thinking it was an animal.
Yeah, I mean, there's a law in Arkansas and a few other places. I think it's called King of the Castle law, which is when you're on your own private property, if you shoot someone, it's very, very hard to sue them.
Right. Or to get legal action.
Yes,
it's self-defense.
Yes, exactly. So
you didn't go into the tent.
No, I did actually. But I think I had at that point this dilemma. And I was talking to Larry Charles, the director. And I'm still, I have to stay in characters the whole time. And he's going, "Do you want to do this? Bruno, do you want to do this?" And there's a part of me which is, all right, this is maybe a little bit risky. Then there's the other part which is, I need it for the movie. I've come all this way. I'm in a field in the middle of Arkansas at 2 a.m. Let's finish the scene. It doesn't seem like a crazy risk. It seems like a small risk. There's cameras there.
There's still people.
There are people and there are cameras there. Are they
Yeah.
really gonna? If they shoot me, they're gonna have to shoot the whole crew.
Right.
Are they really gonna do that? So what's the likelihood of that? Probably 1 in 100.
Right.
Am I ready to take a 1 in 100 risk? 99% risk that it's going to be fine? Yeah.
So that happened a lot, that your life really felt threatened.
Well, I think particularly in Bruno, because it's a different form of prejudice. So you have like anti-Semitism, you have racism, but, homophobia means fear of the homosexual.
Yeah.
And where there's fear, that can turn into violence. So people who don't like gay people are scared of them, and can, that can transition into violence pretty quickly.
It's like threatening on it seems to be threatening on a more core primitive level.
Exactly. So there was a recent study, actually, where they showed people pictures of naked men. And they found out that the homophobes who are most likely to use violence or use violent language against gay people were those who had some increase in tumescence and blood flow to their groin while seeing
Interesting.
naked men.
Yeah.
So it's guys who are struggling with their sexuality who are going to go out and beat up gay guys.
Right.
So we would, how does that affect us in a kind of real way? So we'd go, let's have...
Maybe not struggling, but not willing to allow it in them.
Yes.
Like it doesn't necessarily mean that they're probably gay. It just means like they're attracted for whatever reason, but that can't even live inside them.
Well, there's this, the thing about being straight or gay, they're kind of silly terms because, it's a scale. So everyone is somewhere on the scale.
Right.
I'm 23% gay.
Yeah. You figured that out?
Yeah, I've worked it out. We did all the calculation. I'm 23% gay. I have been. There's been times.
It's a good
times
number.
when I got down to 17. I got up to 31. When I was doing Borat and I had the testicles on my chin, I was up to 31.
Yeah, I've done that in a couple movies.
Yeah, but everyone exactly. It's a theme. It's a motif, and so everyone's on that scale somewhere. Sexuality, it's like being black or white. No one's quite black or white. There are some people who are albino, and there's some people who are.
Yeah.
But generally, people are on that scale, and that's why, it's difficult for people. But so that how that affects us in a real way was, let's say I'm in Texas. I know I want to go into a bar. It's a biker bar, and I've just finished with my boyfriend. I want to get laid that night.
Right.
And so I want to make out with one of the guys. I want to take them back home and have sex with them in the movie.
Yeah.
And so we'll have like a guy who's a cop with us who we've paid. It's a great thing about America. You can pay cops to help you. So we'll go to a bar. You obviously want to go to a rough bar. And then you say, okay, give us some of the figures of, have there been any homicides in this bar? How many? When was the last homicide? Who committed the homicide? Are they behind bars? Are there any guys in there with kind of serious, criminal histories who could be a problem? So you try and limit the amount of risk. You don't want to go and die. You want to go and survive and do a funny joke.
Right.
So there's always, what I'm always trying to do is get the funniest joke with a bit of, that can be edgy, but you're trying to limit the possibility that something bad can happen for you or the crew.
Right.
So that's really the...
Or the volatility of the subject. That, it's weird, like when I had a conversation with my producer about it, that in most cases, the people that were, the pawns in this thing, that were being duped somehow, usually, on one side or another, we're trying to behave properly.
Yeah.
That was what's really interesting, is that within whatever scope they could, they wanted to be accommodating and polite.
Yes. And apart from in Bruno, that was more because the character was more unlikable. We intentionally made him unlikable. We thought, okay, we've got to put him in increasingly.
Well, yeah, because you hate that guy immediately, whether he's gay or not. He's just annoying.
Yeah.
And he's like, you don't know, like, for an American, you don't really know where he's from. And the fact that, like, there were actually people that you could find that didn't know he was gay immediately is baffling to me. Like, their experience with that flamboyant a character who is clearly out, and there's no way you can not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about that. We did one interview that never made the air with this neo-Nazi guy, who actually I think is on death row now. He ended up a couple of years ago going and trying to shoot some people. He murdered 3 people in some Jewish community center.
Oh, my God.
And we went and interviewed him, and the idea was I was going there and I was going to give him publicity for his little neo-Nazi organization.
Uh-huh.
And, you got to get celebrities involved. Why don't you get Woody Allen to be the head of your organization? Because Woody Allen is a Jew. And the idea was I'd go into his place, and at some point my assistant would give me a wheatgrass shot, and accidentally he dropped the wheatgrass shot on my white trousers, and I'd have to take my white trousers off. These are Dolce & Gabbana.
Yeah.
This is worth 5,000 euros. Go and find a fucking dry cleaner now and get them dry cleaned. And so I would have to do the rest of the interview in my G-string with this neo-Nazi guy and, have him take him round. And eventually I go, show me. I want to know how Monday Nazi lives. Show me around the house. Come on. Let's do the cribs, Yeah. And eventually he took me into his bedroom, and I'm there in my G-string. And my boyfriend in the movie runs in and goes, oh, okay. Oh, so you guys are stipping, yeah? You just sucked his dick. And I go, what are you talking about? I haven't been doing that at all. I go, so why are you in your G-string with this guy in his bedroom? Explain yourself. And this guy obviously got a little bit angry and threatened and tried to punch the other guy. And but I'm saying
not funny.
Not in the end. It was too extreme, because the problem is if you get somebody who's that full of hate, you actually don't. You feel uncomfortable in the room, and you feel uncomfortable actually watching them on screen.
Right.
So
uncomfortable because it's threatening, or because it's fucking tragic.
Well, they're tragic. You're giving them ultimately a platform for their vicious, disgusting views.
Right.
And sometimes the air of underlying violence, and I could sense with this guy, he'd already just come out of jail for some plot to overthrow government and trying to blow up some building.
Right.
And his whole place was full of machine guns and
Yeah.
ammunition in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You know that somebody's pretty extreme if they've got ammunition in the kitchen.
Yeah.
There was just an unpleasant air about the whole movie.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. But in that, so that's adrenaline tipping towards the negative.
Yes, exactly. And I remember him showing me photos on the phone. I was like, "Who's that guy?" He goes, "That guy's my son." And I remember looking at the son. I go, "That son is going to come after me at some point." And then a week afterwards, we heard that the son had been shot dead by police. He shot a police officer.
So you were in real evil.
We were in real evil. This was a bad guy.
Right.
And
Right.
You sense that sometimes. I think, I've had the unfortunate experience of being around some people who are kind of really bad people.
Yeah.
And they never really make it to, on screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine it. So how do you exit a situation like that? Like, okay, thank you.
Well, it turned violent, and I ended up trying to protect the guy playing my boyfriend, because he had never been in one of these situations beforehand. And so you're
a movie situation, or
either a movie. It's his first movie and his first undercover kind of movie situation.
Right, yeah.
And suddenly there's this guy who's saying, "I'm going to kick you in the face,"
Yeah.
And for a situation like that, we hire you hire a kind of bodyguard,
Right.
And there's a certain amount they can do. So we hire a guy, and his job is he's a bit like Nobby, actually. He's like this northern bloke. And his job is to prevent me from being arrested. Because once I was arrested, it would mean that I couldn't get back into the country and get a visa. So we're in Kansas, and the police find out that I'm there, and we do a few things, and police go, "Okay, anything else, we're going to arrest him," and they let us know. And so we still have to do a few bits. So we're in this hotel room, and there's a bit in Bruno where I wake up, I get drunk after failing in this biker bar to make love to anyone. I end up drunk with my assistant. We wake up, and we're in this room, in this hotel room, and we're chained to each other in this kind of S&M kind of crazy gear.
Yeah.
He's got a toilet brush in his mouth, and there is, there's feces smeared on the wall, and it's a pretty extreme room. There's a pedal-powered fucking machine in the corner.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting. The room's disgusting. We call down and I'm freaked out that I've made love to my assistant, who I hate.
Yeah.
He's the guy at the end who I end up making love to. It's a rom-com.
Yeah, sure.
And so we call down, and I get the manager up. I need to get, has anyone got a key? And they come into the room, and they see all this disgusting stuff in the room, and they call the cops. And so immediately when the cops are called, this guy's job is to get me out off the hotel without getting arrested, because we know Kansas police have made it clear. So we always have an escape van, and the escape van is waiting in the alleyway at the back, and we have an escape route. And his plan is he unlocks us, and we start running to the service elevator, get in the service elevator, which doors are closing. Suddenly the hotel security open the doors, and they say, "Get out." And we've got the police downstairs. They're arriving. We run away from them, start running down the the staircase, run down. We're on the 17th floor, and the security guys say, follow me, come on, follow me. And we're running down this corridor, and I'm in, a G-string, and my friend's got, my co-star's got this toilet brush from his mouth, and, still got chains and this extreme S&M outfit. And there are kind of guys painting this, the 17th floor of this Kansas hotel. And he's going, "Come on, run. And we run to the end of the corridor. And I go, where are we going? And he goes, "There's the cops downstairs. Out the window, get out." I go, "Out?" So he lifts open the window, and there's a rickety old fire escape. And he goes, get out, out! So we start running down this rickety old fire escape, dressed in this crazy S&M stuff. We get down, and fire escapes in Kansas, they only get down to
right, they have to drop the steps. Yeah.
So we couldn't drop the steps. We're down to the, like 15...
Drop the
10
ladder,
feet.
right.
I think we're 10 feet or 12
my God,
feet.
yeah.
I'm like, how do we get... I can see the getaway car.
Yeah.
And he goes, jump! I go, what? He goes, jump! So there are these two African-American ladies who are like having a little cigarette break. And from the heavens appears me. I jump in front of them wearing kind of heels and this crazy S&M stuff. And then my friend with the toilet brush in his mouth. I break my heel. And we jump into the car. The van disappears. Yeah. We get out of the state. We always have to get out of the state. And... unfortunately, we had to shut down the movie because this idiot had made me jump out of a bloody 10-foot fire escape. So I broke my heel.
Oh, you did?
So we shut down for 3 months.
So now, it's one of the reasons why you don't do this anymore because maybe your wife said, I don't want you to die for a fucking joke.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, one day, again, a lot of these stories are in...
I don't want you to end up in jail because of a fucking joke.
Well, one time in New York, we ended up doing a bunch of stuff on Borat in the same... I think it was a precinct... It was all to do around the park, Madison and Park. And,
yeah.
I don't really know, but sort of
Central
Upper
Park?
West Side. Yeah, it's kind of the fancy area of New York.
Yeah.
Central Park kind of area. Unfortunately, that was all within one precinct.
Yeah.
And so they kept on getting police reports that we're there. And at one point, we did one scene where Borat, goes into a hotel. He has to leave. And I take my bag and I take all the furniture out of the room as well. They call the cops. And the police, I don't know, whatever you call him, captain in charge of that precinct, knew it was me and was getting increasingly frustrated. And that's a really bad thing to do. You don't want to piss off some police guys. So he decided he's getting me arrested. And what they did was, the police are on their way. I disappear as always. What they did was they arrested the producer of the movie and the assistant director. They took them into the cells. And she was like a 31-year-old woman, Monica Levinson. And the assistant director actually, he was a real gentleman. He said, I'm going to go with you to jail. And they gave her a really rough night, and then we get a call which was, if Sasha comes down, we will release everyone. And we call up my lawyer, the guy with the
in India.
staff in India, and he's like, it's a trap. They want to arrest you, and they're going to get publicity if they're the guys who arrested Ali G. And you have to get out of the state now. So, I get back to the hotel, and I go, baby, we've got to get out of the state now. We've got to get out, pack, and let's go.
To your wife?
Yeah, so there were a couple of times over the years where she had to, right. She came down once and set. We had a baby at the time, and she's like, I'm going to visit my husband on set. And I think we were in Alabama, and there was a cop chase. They were chasing me in a van, and I developed this technique of being able to direct the driver while being on the floor, like, okay, tell me what's in front of you. Go right, go left, da-da-da. And so there's a cop chase, and she's listening in on the walkie-talkie, and we had a baby. She's like, oh, right, I'm not visiting set anymore. We had one time when I was doing Borat, where I'm interviewing this woman in, I think I was in Tennessee. And I go, excuse me, can I please use your laboratories? And she goes, of course, And I go to the bathroom and I come back out after 10 minutes and I'm wearing her towel and using her toothbrush. I'd had a shower, my hair's wet. Yeah. And she calls the police and she throws me out of the... Fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't blame her.
Yeah.
She throws me out of the room, locks the front door, and I'm outside the door, but she's got my costume, Borat's only costume inside. Yeah. And I've got her property, which is her towel. And I hear the cop cars coming. They're getting closer and closer. And I go, what do I do? What do I do? Because if I run in the car, it's theft. So anyway, I ended up sort of jumping in the car, and we had to negotiate. The police took the costume, and
they got the costume, and you
made
an exchange.
Yeah, we made an exchange, and I'm on the floor going, "What do I do? Do I return the towel?"
To the guy in India.
Yeah, to the guy in India. Yeah.
Where's that movie?
So we were in Kansas one time. again, this is after the just before the day of breaking the heel.
Yeah.
And we decide there's this group called God Hates Fags.
Yeah. Phelps.
The Phelps family. Not a nice family. And so again, the cops say they knew we're there, they know we're in Kansas, and they go, all right, we're arresting Sasha. We know he's there, and God Hates Fags heard that I was going to do something against them. We knew they were doing a demonstration. And the cops say, all right, they let our cop know, we see him, he's arrested, and that's it. And they shut down the movie. So I really need the scene. And I'm thinking, what do I do here, And, our cop says, they've given you a warning, a fair warning.
Yeah.
You should leave the state now. And I go, all right, what I want you to do is they found out that the cops were circling the God Hate Fags demonstration.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, time how long we've got between every circle. So they time it, it's like 3 minutes, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So I go, all right, what we're going to do is when they pass the God Hates Fags, you're going to drop me off at that moment when they cross past the corner so we're out of eyesight.
You're doing recon.
So we've got like 3 minutes or 2 minutes 50.
To do what?
And I'm going to do a quick little sketch, and then I want another car that's waiting, and I'll go from one car to the other car. So, and somebody needs to kind of give me, hold up things for like 30 seconds, And so we did it. We managed to do the sketch and jump in, and we had like a Bond lawyer hiding in the bushes in case I was arrested to get me out on, on bail immediately.
I'm just trying to think what this feels like. It's just sort of like, that you definitely, the balance you had to strike and this weird relationship you have with the law, and then them knowing you on top of that and not willing to indulge you. Like, even knowing that, like, if you're going to walk out with furniture from the hotel, you're going to bring it back.
Yeah.
But the hotel's like, we don't want to indulge this fuck.
Yeah.
We're running a business here.
Exactly.
It's not our job to be his fucking, so you had to negotiate all this and yet do these little recons that, how are you going to beat the fucking excitement of that?
You can't. It's hard for me. That's why I do a lot of improv on set now and a lot of...
And are there states you can't go back to?
I think only Sedona. It's only technically I'm a felon in Sedona. Mm-hmm. I think other states are kind of fine. I mean, we're going to Russia in a couple of weeks, which will be interesting. That's my first time back since doing Borat. And after Borat, the Prime Minister of Kazakhstan, Nazarbayev, he contacted the British Prime Minister, who was Tony Blair at the time, who then later on admitted to me, Nazarbayev said, all right, I want you to stop this guy from releasing his film. I want you to end Borat. And he said, well, listen, it's not a dictatorship here. I can't, do that. And then there's some other...
Did you talk to Tony Blair about it?
Yeah, Tony Blair contacted me about a year after he had to leave office.
Yeah.
And he said, you put me in a difficult position because we were doing trade with Kazakhstan. And you made me, you kind of embarrassed me. He thought it was quite funny.
So that's the Buffon.
That's the Buffon, yeah. Exactly.
There you are.
Yeah.
And you're going back to Russia?
So we're going back to Russia to promote the movie, but it's the first time I've gone there since, which will be interesting. If I don't come back...
It'd be horrible if you got arrested now.
Yeah.
It's after it's all said and done.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I got invited to Kazakhstan during the promotional stuff for Borat because they realized at one point, let's embrace him. Fox got worried that I was, because there were kind of death threats, and so they hired specialist security who are basically usually complete morons.
Yeah.
Some guy I was swimming in Sydney during the publicity tour, and this guy didn't know I was going to go swimming, and he starts walking in his full clothes into the water. So these guys who were trained in the army to look after, I'm not letting him go. So they did a security assessment of me going to Kazakhstan. They said it's impossible to secure you because even if 1 in 10 people wants to hurt you, you just can't.
Yeah, so you
can't do it. No.
All right. Well, take care of yourself, will you?
Thank you very much. Well, listen, now I'm doing kind of straight ahead movie.
Yeah, it's a movie.
So it's easier.
Yeah.
With Scorsese, you don't get in trouble.
Right. What'd you do with Scorsese?
I did this movie called Hugo.
Oh, that's right. That's a big movie.
It's a kids movie.
Yeah.
But
I have a feeling like I think the only thing that's going to really stop you from doing this shit again eventually will be your family.
Yes. Yeah.
It's good to talk to you.
Well, thank you very much for having me on, indulging me, and letting me spout
great.
out all these long stories that are
It's great.
probably slightly repetitive, actually.
No one's heard them.
No one's heard them, you're right, but they're on the theme, aren't they?
No, we covered a lot of stuff, and this was a really nice long interview, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, pleasure being here. Good coffee, actually.
Good.
Thank you, mate.
Right? Sasha Baron Cohen. Couldn't get him to stop talking. I didn't want to, but he was ready. Maybe it was that coffee. I should remember what that coffee was. Before I forget, this episode was brought to you by SoFi. SoFi offers up great low-rate loans to great people, meaning if you're great with money and also have a great job, you might just make the cut. They're changing the way people get loans and doing things that have never been done before. Things like career services, member events, and even happy hours, folks. Your bank doesn't do that stuff, do they? Head to SoFi.com to find out if you're great, financially speaking. That's SOFI.com. Terms and conditions apply, and for the benefit of the law people, I need to say NMLS number 1121636. You can also go to WTFpod.com for all your WTF pod needs. Posters, stuff, things. I'll play a little guitar.